This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USAPrepares.com. Broadcasting 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. And there's a link to your instructors at USAPrepares.com. USAPrepares.com. Podcasts are free. Converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. Aaron's engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. Dr. Lorraine Hurley's with us. Uncommon Awareness. You can listen to her right here on GCN, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central. Welcome, Dr. Hurley.
Well, it's so good to be with you, Vinny. Thank you for having me.
You know,
I love your bumper music, by the way. I've been trying to get mine changed for quite a while now. I'm going to have to wake those guys up at GCN again.
You have to know somebody.
I believe it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you where that comes from. Back in the 70s, when I was studying at the university, there was a song. I was a finance and economics major, and there was this one song that I really liked, and these were the days of 33 1/3 RPM records. They were called record albums and cassette tapes, and there was a group called 10cc, as in a syringe with 10 cubic centimeters. Obviously, it was probably about illegal substances that you would put in a syringe with 10 cc's of some liquid. Well, this band, 10cc, produced a song called The Wall Street Shuffle. And it's about greed and corruption at the highest levels, and how you can get ahead by plotting and scheming and dishonesty. And I thought that this song, I don't know why, but I really liked it. And so somewhere I still have this record, and I played it just a couple times, well, maybe 7 times. And when I did, I recorded it onto a cassette tape serially. So I played it, and then I recorded it again and again and again, 7 times in a row. And I would listen to that tape, and I had no idea why so many decades ago I was listening to that song. But that song became the intro, the outro, the bumper music for USAPrepares.com radio broadcast. And it's still true today. It's still Wall Street and banking and the global elite are still up to their same games about control, obfuscation, manipulation of the news, and stealing money from we the people. So that
Kings,
is why.
Priests, and thieves, Vinny. Kings, priests, and thieves.
Say that one more. Say that one more time,
Kings.
please.
This was a guest of mine. Kings, priests, and thieves. We've always had them. We always will have them until we decide we won't.
Yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. And let me just share this with you. I have a friend who lives in England, and I get a chance to see him at an international event. It's a show of militaria, meaning people from all over the world come to this convention, if you will. It's called the Military Antiques Extravaganza. MAX is the acronym. And at the MAX show, you can see uniforms from all kinds of wars, from the War of Northern Aggression known as the Civil War, through Vietnam, through World War I, World War II, and and the current skirmishes that we've had to kill the young of various nations.
Right.
And so he lives in England, and I asked him about the Queen, and I asked him about royalty, and he said, "Oh, it's so great, she's the Queen." And I said, "So what actually does she do?"
Right.
"Oh, she's the Queen." I said, "Yeah. But what does she do besides suck the blood out of your country and a whole bunch of other countries? What else is she besides a parasite?"
Right.
And he was outraged. He was outraged because he's been brainwashed into thinking that this royalty is something that we need to look up to rather than look down at like a disease.
Right.
But so there are different opinions about royalty and about priests and thieves and crooks and politicians and mine is that representatives are few and far between. They are people who work for the common good, and politicians are common and they work for their own good. It's going to take a long time to get me to change that opinion.
Well, Vinny,
So-
you know what you'd like? I came across a book, Political Ponerology, The Science of Evil, and the number
Wow.
of psychopaths that are in positions of political control is astonishing. And I think that that's something that you might be interested in looking into, because I'm with you all the way. I agree. 100%.
You're on the East Coast, and I'll tell you what, I think there is a greater density of crooks and thieves on the East Coast than there is in the Midwest. Now, I don't want you to think that we don't have them. we got plenty.
Right. I agree with you. In fact, I'll tell you what, the level of control and corruption out here it would be laughable if it wasn't doing such damage. But as you were leaving New Hampshire to come into Massachusetts, New Hampshire put up a sign saying, entering the nanny state. And it started this huge brouhaha between New Hampshire and Massachusetts. But that's kind of not even just the whole East Coast, but Massachusetts in particular seems to be a real magnet for the politically insane.
Well, I don't know. I don't know why we let these guys get away with it, but we're encouraging more and more of our radio broadcast class to get involved at every level and take back America. And so one of the things that I'm doing next week, I've been invited to have my picture taken. And here's why. I decided that I'm against many things. Fluoride, of course. And fluoride is something that, for some reason, it is so entrenched. The bribes must be so widespread and so deep that politicians are not willing to give up the money that they receive and the gifts that they receive, that we can't seem to get rid of fluoride in the water yet. But I'm having my picture taken because I've decided to run for something that I can make a change in, and that is smart meters. But I can only do it at a local level. So I wanted to get the smart meters removed from our farm, and I called up the electric co-op, and I said, I'd like to have the meter removed. I'd like my old meter back. And after a series of phone calls, I finally got a phone call back from the engineer, the chief engineer, and he said, so what do you want to do? And I said, I'd like my meter changed. I'd like the old meter. I'm concerned about the electromagnetic radiation and the health damage that it causes, and I'd like my old meter back. He said, well, we can't do it. And I said, why is that? And he said, well, we don't have the old meters. And I said, well, that's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We'll use mine. I have one. And I said, it's great. Hold on. And I got it out of the box, and I said, here it is. It's right here. So I'm playing Columbo. Columbo is a character that, sometimes I play when I teach in a classroom. I'm confused, and I'm scratching my head, figuratively. And so I
remember that show.
That's me. It really is me. I am that guy. And so I was Columbo on the phone with this engineer, and he knows all about me. And the reason he knows about me is whenever I call, they put me on the speakerphone. And there's a whole bunch of people in the room because it takes several of them to deal with, Columbo. They want to make sure that they've got the right answer for me, and because they know I'm going to use it somehow against them. Well, anyway, I said, I've got my own meter, and he said, well, how do we know that it's accurate? And my response was, how do I know your meter's accurate?
Right.
So we have this stalemate, and I said, I'd like the meter removed, and he said, we don't have them, we can't do it, and by the way, if you want electricity, you're going to have to stick with that smart meter. And I said, well, how'd this happen? And he said, well, the board wanted these smart meters. And I said, okay, how do you get on the board? He said, well, there's a committee. So there's a committee to nominate members to be elected to the board of directors for Laclede Electric.
Oh, I see where this is going.
So I said, well, what about how many meters did you guys replace? 34,000. So how much did they cost? Well, $80 each. So the meters cost $80? Well, no, that'd be the electronics. Well, how much are the meters? Well, it's $40. By the time they were done, they spent $5 million replacing these 30-some thousand meters. So, like, smoke's coming out of my ears because my electric bill's going up because these bozos are changing the meters. And the meters have a 10-year life expectancy, and the break-even point is 10 years. So there's no reason to do this. Absolutely none. They fired the entire meter reader staff, and those are the guys who'd look up and look down and see the branches over the wires and say, you know what, we better trim these trees over at Locust and Vine because, the tree limbs are going to fall down. And, so they've taken away the eyes and ears of the meter readers who used to be there to view the countryside for preventive maintenance. So you look at all this, and you see that there's a problem. And so I asked about, well, what about being nominated by the members of the electric co-op? And he said, hold on. Came back and he said, okay, here it is. Now, a person can be nominated by the membership if they have enough signatures. I said, okay, how many is that? He said,
he wasn't volunteering much for you, was he?
15. And I said, wow, this is great. We're going to be working together. So I get my picture taken for the election for the board of directors next week. And here's the whole reason I'm telling you all this, class. You can do it. You can do it. If I, as a farmer, can run for board of directors for an electric co-op with all the benefits and perks, you can too. And we can talk a little bit about what those perks might be when we come back. Dr. Lorraine Hurley, and we're going to get into medicine. We'll be right back. Dr. Lorraine Hurley's with us, Uncommon Awareness, and you can listen to Dr. Lorraine Hurley Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time, right here on Genesis Communications Network. So, Lorraine, I was mentioning about the benefits. When you're on a board of directors, I thought I'd be serving for free and I'd be paying my own way to go to meetings and so forth. Oh, no. No, you get benefits. And they act like it's, minimum. Health insurance. Now, health insurance, I haven't verified this, but I've been told that they pay for health insurance. Now, who can tell anyone that health insurance is cheap today?
No.
So I have a feeling that, if health insurance is $1,000, that's a $12,000 a year benefit plus, stipends and meals, when you're traveling and traveling reimbursement. So I can imagine that there is a substantial amount of money involved in this. Now, that is not why I'm getting involved. I'm getting involved because I want to reduce electric rates. Now, I can just see what happens when I make a motion that we eliminate health insurance from the board of directors.
Right. And Vinny, hey, you know what your listeners might be interested in knowing about is there's something called Liberty Health Share. And it qualifies as insurance under, it's not insurance though, it's Liberty Health Share. And I've been trying to get the word out about this, and I'll have the director on. It's health cost sharing. It's a phenomenal program. It's only $300 a month for a household, and
wow.
It's the solution to staying out of Obamacare. Period. You do not want to get involved in that. And even what we're paying for health insurance through private insurance companies and so forth is outrageous. Outrageous.
Well, it is, and I pay more than that, and I think my deductible is probably $10,000, and so I don't get any benefit from this. I literally don't. I probably would have to bring a picture of me to show to my doctor so he could remember who I am, because
yeah.
I hardly. I mean, if I remember. And I haven't remembered in well over a year to go for my annual checkup. I mean, that's all I go for, and it's kind of like this. So how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. Okay. Let me look. Okay, good. Eyes, ears, throat feels good. Okay. Got any questions? No. Okay. Thanks so much. We'll see you next year. I go, wait a minute. Is there anything that I should be doing that, to improve my health? No. You look fine. Just keep doing what you're doing. Should I take vitamins and minerals? No. You get all that in your food. Okay, so just keep doing what you're doing. By the way, Vinny, you're a little. Your weight's gone up a little bit, and
right.
So you need to look at that. I go, Lorraine, I weigh 138 pounds. Okay. So my response is, have you been in the waiting room? Have you seen the patients in the waiting room? They all weigh more than I do, and you're concerned about my weight? I'm in the top 95% of thin people here. 5'7", 138 pounds. I am not overweight. So and it's really kind of funny that. My take on things, and I have to wait like 35, 45 minutes, to come see him. Now I get there early, so not only am I on time, I'm early, but he's late.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is, right? And that is if you can get
and don't forget, medical health care is an oxymoron. When you go to see your
Right.
doctor, health is not the mere absence of disease. It's a state of vitality and resourcefulness. But if you go to see the doctor, we're trained to identify disease states. And so in the medical mindset, if you don't have a disease, you're healthy. And you and I both know that that's far and away from the truth. Yeah, but, and even with your yearly exam, Vinny, just again to share, when they do the blood work and so forth, it's really, you take your blood pressure, they're only really looking at those things that would enable them to create a diagnosis, say of hypercholesterolemia or high blood pressure. And then what will the response be? Drugs, not education
Absolutely.
on how to fix it. And there's lots that can be done to fix all of that.
When we come back, can we talk about a couple things? One, a home natural medicine kit, and also, can we detoxify our bodies from the microscopic particles that are in the air, from chemtrails, from exhaust, and so forth? Dr. Lorraine Hurley's with us. We'll be right back. Dr. Lorraine Hurley's with us. Uncommon Awareness is her broadcast, and she's right here at Genesis Communications Network, and you can listen to her Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. And, the next time we're on the air together, Dr. Hurley, I think the class would really like to know who you are, how you got started, how long you've been a medical doctor, what your passions are, more about you, the person. And I think, as I listened to broadcasters when I was younger, I yearned to learn more about them, and they became people who were part of my extended family, and they were important to me in my life. And I think the listeners, the audience, the class is interested in who you are. So can we, the next time you're on, can we do that?
Well, absolutely. And guess what? That's exactly what we're going to be doing with you on my show next week. So your listeners need to know that you will be my guest next Thursday, and I am going to explore the man, the mind, and the heart, the heart behind what you do and who you are. So we have an opportunity for your regular listeners to kind of get to you, to see, to see who you are up close and personal. Yeah.
So you're going to ask easy questions?
Nope. What would be the fun in that?
Okay, so I'll put a post on our website exactly when we're going to be doing this, and so you'll have advance notice class. So if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about what makes me tick and what I'm up to and why I say and do the things I do, and there's going to be questions that come from Dr. Lorraine Hurley.
Well, it's going to be identifying why you're such a leader, because we do need, the Genesis Communication Network does host some phenomenal people who are working really hard to change public perceptions of what's really going on in our world. And I think you do, you're phenomenal leadership in many regards.
You're very kind. I'm just a farmer. I used to have a job, many, many years ago. I haven't had one since 1989. And I jumped off the corporate ladder to become a farmer, and I was watching the country go down the drain, and I decided to speak out about it to see if I could, wake some people up, because, I would talk to people and they would just say, you're a nut. You have no idea. Everything's fine. You're just one of those conspiracy wackos. And after a while, I thought, man, there are a lot of people that think that. And so I decided to speak out at a higher level with through an expo, and have other people say the same kind of things that I've been saying. And maybe if they don't believe me, they'll believe these other people because they're from, other places in the country far away. So if, people from California are saying the same things and people from the East Coast are saying the same things, well, maybe there's a hint of truth in it. So that's kind of why I do what I do. But we'll talk about that. Microscopic particles in the air. Now, here's a concern I have. There's the geoengineering, the climate change, the barium, the aluminum compounds that are in the air, these very small microscopic particles coming out of the exhaust of vehicles. Can we do anything to get them out of our system? I mean, we still have to breathe, and even if you put a mask on, even if you were to wear a hospital particle mask, these particles are so small they go right through the mask.
That's right. They're nanoparticles. Right. They're
what
nanoparticles. Well, you detoxify. And I can share with you specifically. There's a lot of aluminum in what they're spraying, and with these metals that they're spraying, these metals will displace essential minerals in your body. Mm-hmm. So one of the best things for aluminum in a substance is lithium orotate. They both have a covalence of 3, and so lithium orotate, it's a natural substance. We're not talking the drug. We're talking lithium orotate, a natural substance, and this will definitely help to displace aluminum in cells. But you want to actively detoxify, so that it involves putting things in and getting things out. So the first thing you want to do is get yourself a really good there's 60 essential minerals, and most supplements don't contain a full complement of minerals, because there's something called colloidal plant minerals in addition to trace minerals and alkalinizing minerals. So Youngevity does make the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, and they make the plant-based minerals, and I use both of those. I do it additionally every day. So you begin to put in the minerals that are required, because you cannot metabolize your vitamins without minerals. You can take all the vitamins in the world. If you're mineral deficient, you will not be metabolizing those vitamins properly. Now, the other thing that's really important is to actively detox, and one of the most powerful ways to get these substances out of your body is to sweat. Now, I do Bikram yoga. Years ago, I had an infrared sauna, and when I left to do some traveling, I sold it. I haven't replaced it. But infrared, whether it's far or near infrared, you'll hear debate about it, but infrared is a way of producing a copious amount of sweat without really high temperatures. And so if you don't have access to a sauna, you can use traditional sauna, but like I say, doing Bikram yoga, I do it in a hot room with very high humidity. I profusely sweat for 90 minutes. I do this a few times a week. And so you want to sweat. But again, you're going to be sweating out the good stuff as well as the bad stuff. So replacement becomes an absolute essential need in your life. You can also, for people that don't have a sauna or access to this way, maybe you can exercise, but there's a metabolic cost to exercise. We're talking passive sweating as a form of detoxification. You can get into a really hot bathtub, as hot as you can stand it, until you break a sweat. And what you've got laid out on your bed is a heating blanket and some towels over that. And after you get out of the tub, you wrap yourself in that, and you continue to sweat for as long as you can stand it. And so sweating out these things, your skin is your body's largest organ. And if you can do things like skin brushing, you get a nice natural, bristle brush. And you can go online, and they will instruct you how to brush. You always brush towards your heart. But active skin brushing produces a greater detoxification capacity within your skin. Now, there's also, you have to support your liver through all of this. And so there are products available that will, these substances, these pollutants, and we're not just even talking geoengineering, we're talking substances that are everywhere. There's a guy who wrote a great book I'm trying to get him on called Slow Death by Rubber Duck. My colleague sent that over. And it's really an astonishing expose on the number of toxins that are everywhere in our cars, in our furniture, in everyday things. So sweating is one way, but the liver needs help now. And the liver will process our incidental, what we call exposures, if you support what's called phase 1 and phase 2. So the first thing that you do is you eat something, it goes down into your gut, and I'm going to get to the gut in a minute. And then you have this really rich vascular bed in the gut. I mean, it's huge, the amount of blood volume that flows into your gut. And as you are absorbing, it goes into the portal vein and up to the liver. And the liver has to take things apart, and then it has to quench free radicals. It has to put them back together in a way that you can excrete them. So there are numerous products out there, but I really believe, and I do use something every day, you want something that is known to support liver detoxification. It will provide you with nutrients that help to balance out phase 1 and phase 2, so you're not producing a lot of free radicals. And many of these are antioxidants. Now, the gut, a lot of people really are so poorly educated about the gastrointestinal tract. It is not an internal organ. It is a human environmental interface. You are a hollow tube from your mouth to your anus, and it's your body's largest immune organ. There's like 70% of all of our immune cells in our bodies reside in the gut-associated lymphoid tissue. So if you don't take care of this part of your anatomy, your immune system becomes very, very stressed. And part of it is understanding that there are microbes, healthy, friendly microbes, that we are intended to exist with, what we call symbiotically. We help them, they help us. But what they are is they've evolved this extraordinary intelligence. They train our immune system. So if we're not actively seeking a way to keep this ecology healthy, it can become very compromised. Well, fermented foods, are a great way to do it. Probiotics are a great way to do it. But I think learning to ferment foods and getting them into your diet is a really, really, really fantastic way to keep this ecology flourishing. Because, as you know, there are also bioweaponized organisms in the geoengineer constituent, and so we want to keep our immune systems in tip-top shape. You also want to cleanse your colon. You want, whether you take substances that are fibers that will help to move things through, you get what they call colonics. You can get colon hydrotherapy, and doing this a couple of times a year is a great way to keep up with it. But you can cleanse just through substances that are made with fibers. And there's also something you can do called a liver cleanse. And this involves magnesium, Epsom salts, and some grapefruit juice and some oils. And again, I like, I can't think of his last name now, Andrea Moritz's liver cleanse. You can Google that online. Andrea Moritz's liver cleanse. It's one of the easiest, most effective ones I've found. And we should be actively cleansing our livers. Because this is something, your liver is your workhorse. It does 75% of your detoxification. So we're exposed on a daily basis. Exposures are cumulative, and we have to develop, I consider detoxification a lifestyle skill. It's a skill you have to acquire, and it's something because diet has a lot to do with it, eating fresh, whole, clean foods. Of course, we're buying organics now, but they're spraying everything, so we can't get away from everything. But we can reduce our exposure to pesticides by utilizing organic foods. A lot of debate and controversy over whether or not they're more nutritious because soil health is so poor, but this is a topic for another time. Does that answer the question? Do you have any questions for me on that?
I certainly do. And I'd like to make a comment first. You talked about exposures are cumulative. I think that is something that, we just haven't thought about. Everything that we've been exposed to is cumulative, whether it be electromagnetic radiation, whether it be toxins, whether it be the cigarette, one after the next. So I hope, class, that you've paid attention very carefully to what Dr. Lorraine Hurley has said. She's absolutely right. And we come back, let's talk about how to ferment foods. Wow. Time really flies with Dr. Lorraine Hurley. Now, if you'd like to get to her website, drhurley.net. Dr. as in Dr. Hurley, HURLEY.net.
Yeah, and I'm a little embarrassed that I haven't kept up with.
We're talking about fermented foods.
Vinny, I forgot a couple of points in the detox that are really important. Can I share those first?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
Sure.
Greens, green food,
sure.
Green juicing. And why is it so important? Green food has chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is a potent blood cleanser. It produces oxygen. It imparts oxygen to the body, and it binds CO2. Niacin flushing. I mentioned skin brushing, but you really want to do this with niacin because niacin is a smooth muscle, a microvascular dilator. So it helps to improve blood flow. And if you brush while you're having a niacin flush, it improves the detoxification abilities of the skin brushing. I'm sorry I forgot those. Just wanted to bring them up.
Okay. And you mentioned fermented foods. Now, we know that you can ferment beer and you can ferment wine. And then there's also like the fermentation using lactobacillus bacteria. What are you talking about? And can you give us some examples of the foods that you're talking about that we should consume?
Sure. Let's just take homemade sauerkraut. Now there's cabbage, fermented cabbage. It's the easiest thing. You can buy what they call cultures. You can buy fermentation cultures, but this is something that is so simple. You chop your cabbage, and you press it down into a crock. Now you can juice a little bit of that cabbage and add the juice, but you cover it in water. You stick a plate on it and a very heavy rock. And because these bacteria are everywhere, it will naturally ferment. You can do this with anything. You don't have to have a starter culture. There are organisms in the environment that will gravitate towards the food. A lot of people are freaked out about this, but I do it. It's fine. You will be fine. And what happens is after, especially in the summertime, it can take just a few days or a week to do this. There will be a little browning around the edges, the top of your crock. You simply remove that. And then when you go down, you will see that your cabbage has been fermented, and you can do this with any vegetable, really. But there are also things like kefirs and kombucha. Now, kombucha you can buy at the health food store. You can use that to begin making your own kombucha, which is just a fermented tea, and you add sugar or honey to it. I prefer honey, and with the cultures that are in the kombucha, it will create something called a mother. You will see that there is a growth that begins to cover the top of your ferment. You don't want to throw that away. You want to begin to collect that and hold on to that because it grows and grows, and it's called the mother. With kefir, you can use almond milk, or if you have that, you have, of course, Vinny, I'm sure, access to raw milk. I don't recommend yogurts made with pasteurized milk. Pasteurized milk is very, very hard. It's not a good food any more than gluten is a good food. But if you have access to raw milk, you can obtain yogurt cultures. You just get a container of yogurt from the grocery store, and you use that to seed your milk. And, of course, with yogurt, you have to keep it warm. So we're talking about there's all different types of ferments, and kefir is granules that will multiply and grow, and so you just have to buy the kefir granules once, and you'll save them after each time you ferment your almond milk or your milk. And, and it's really, it takes, there's a great book out there called Wild Fermentation. Trying to think, guy's last name is Katz. Wild Fermentation. I mean, this guy goes into fermenting meats, and there's nothing he won't try to ferment or hasn't fermented. I don't recommend fermented meat myself, but it's really stinky. But that's,
I'm glad you said that.
But that's really it. We these are simple things that we can do at home. They're self-perpetuating. And there's, of course, the internet's a fabulous resource. Just Google fermented vegetables, and there's all kinds of instruction YouTubes out there.
Wow, that was a fast hour. drhurley.net, drhurley.net, and I'm going to be on her broadcast next week. And so Vinny's on the hot seat. I'm really looking forward to it. Dr. Hurley, thanks so much for being with us and sharing with us the detoxification information, because coming up next, Dane Wigington, and we're going to break some news about what's happening with chemtrails. Thanks so much for being with us, Dr. Hurley.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, Vinny. Have a beautiful day.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? And here we go. Hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. I'm delighted to be on the air with Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.org. And I just want to share with you that he and I talk off the air, sometimes a couple times a week. And we've become good friends. And I have a great, great admiration and respect for Dane Wigington. He is very concerned about the environment, and he's concerned about what man is deliberately doing to damage the environment. Now, that wouldn't be you and me. That would be other people who are deliberately assaulting our planet. And if you think about it, it's really tough to leave this planet. I don't know anyone who has. I don't believe we went to the moon, got off, walked around, and came back. I don't believe it. So what I'm saying is we'd have to be out of our minds to damage our own planet, a place that we can't leave. We're here. We're trapped here. And damaging our planet is slow suicide. Welcome, Dane Wigington.
Hello, Vincent. Good to be back. Thanks for your continued attention on the dire issue of global climate engineering.
Dane, what I said in the opening, do you find that a stretch, or do you tend to agree with what I just said?
I stay focused on the climate engineering issue, but to put some light on that statement that I know to a lot of people would seem fringe. I don't believe it's fringe at all. And as we discussed, again, on other occasions, doesn't it seem a little bit strange to people that they could launch a dune buggy up to the moon in the late 1960s? And here we are 45 years later, and nobody's ever been back. And my wife from the former Soviet Union, a captive country, she's from Lithuania, they were told that Russia was the first one to make it to the moon. So, history is written by those in power, and it should seem odd to people that nobody's been back in 45 years, and we were driving dune buggies around in the 60s up there. So, we are definitely trapped here, Vincent, and what people don't understand is the fragility of the planet. The atmosphere which allows us to live here is as thin as a layer of paint around a basketball. That's not much protection. And when we're blatantly, willfully assaulting it day in, day out with completely deployed climate engineering programs that are wreaking havoc on Earth's life support systems, that's folly of the first order. And that's where we're at. People need to understand the immediacy of what we face. I mean, every day at this point reduces our chance for any even short-term survival if these programs continue. We face a lot of challenges, Vincent, but I chose to focus all on this one challenge because mathematically it's the greatest single all-out assault against all life on Earth, bar none. Global climate engineering.
Let's get back to what you just said a few seconds ago. Now, I believe what you meant was if you take the size of the Earth and the thickness of the atmosphere above our planet Earth, and you reduce the size of Earth to the size of a basketball,
Correct.
the amount of atmosphere would be analogous to the thickness of a coat of paint on that basketball. That's what you're saying, correct?
You're correct.
Okay. So, class, the atmosphere does not go on through infinity. It's finite, and it's thin, and it gets thinner the higher you go up. And we are most concerned with what's here on the ground, and the altitude that we may fly into, like 35,000 feet. That's what we're really most concerned about. But the atmosphere is a protective layer from all kinds of assaults, wavelengths from the sun. We want the atmosphere to burn up objects that enter into our atmosphere. We want them to burn up through friction in the air as they travel at high speeds. So the atmosphere is very important. Let me share what happened yesterday with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. So you know of Richard Allen Miller, and he was on the air, and he said, Vinny, and I'm paraphrasing, there are no chemtrails. I'm looking outside. This was live on the air. I'm looking outside. There are no chemtrails. That's amazing. No, it was like a special day. No chemtrails. And about 20 minutes later, he came back, and he was absolutely stunned on the air. And class, you can listen to the archives with Dr. Richard Allen Miller yesterday. And he was talking about the assault of chemtrails over him in parallel lines. He couldn't believe it. He was stunned that there weren't any. And then 20 minutes or so later, they were all over the sky. He was shocked, and he reported it live. And he's in Grants Pass, Oregon. So they're in Missouri. They're on the East Coast. They're on the West Coast. They're where you are in California. They're everywhere, right?
Absolutely. There's no place to hide from this, Vincent. And we have one study I cite often because it's a good barometer on just how widespread these programs are. In 2010, 1,000 whales were surveyed from around the globe and tested. And the report said, and this is an exact quote, that they contain jaw-dropping levels of aluminum in their tissues. And this is, again, from some of the most remote places on the planet. So there's nowhere to hide from this. And when we have figures like global dimming, which state 20 to 25% of the sun's direct rays no longer reach the surface of the planet, as compared to 5 decades ago, that's a hell of a lot of metal in the air. Now, we know we have a lot of sources. We have carbon-burning sources. We have a lot of types of aerosol pollution. But when the express goal of stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, the acronym is SAG, is to fill the atmosphere with reflective, light-scattering particulates, that's what we have. And the marked increase cannot be accounted for from any other anthropogenic source, even with NOAA citing in recent articles that since 2000, the atmosphere has been additionally saturated with particulates, and they cannot identify the source of those particulates. So, we have a big elephant in the room, Vincent, and you have agencies that are doing their best to ignore it, deny it, but people need only to look up and look at some of the data. We still have a lot of journalists now trying very actively, much more actively. In fact, as we gain ground in exposing this issue, and we are gaining ground, the pushback of total disinformation from bought-sold and paid-for journalists is astounding, and their attempt to marginalize something that is absolutely, inarguably verifiable, which is the spraying of our skies with these toxic reflective metal particulates.
Dane, there's something that I'd like to share with our class, and I don't know exactly how to do this. So I'm going to do the best I can. I have received phone calls from all over. And from the minute I get off the air at 11 o'clock Central Time till 11 o'clock at night, the phone rings off the hook here at the farm. And people from all over are calling me, from South America, from Europe, and from throughout the United States. And they have all kinds of information that they want to share. And some of the information that is shared with me is Well, I can't prove it, and I don't like to go off on rumors, but here is something that I have been told, and I do want to share this. But I'd like to caution those listening that I absolutely cannot prove this, but here it is. And maybe you can comment on this also. Maybe you've received calls like this. I've been told that, first of all, we've been trying to figure out, do these pilots know what's going on? How can this be done without pilots saying, I am absolutely not going to fly, I'm not going to poison my own sandbox, I'm not going to do it, for a lot of reasons. Well, I've been told that some of these nanoparticles, some of these aluminum and barium and other compounds have been pre-mixed into the jet fuel. So many of the airplanes that are flying are depositing these compounds in the air as they fly. But these compounds are also added to gasoline that we consume in our automobiles and light trucks. That would be regular gasoline, mid-grade, and premium. And it's also being put into diesel fuel that we use in diesel engines in trucks, cars, and over-the-road trucks. So that not only are these particles being dispersed throughout the higher altitudes, but they're being deposited, or they're being dispersed by the tailpipe emissions of vehicles on the ground, like the car in front of you, or the car in front of the car in front of you, or the truck in front of you. Now, if we think back to the 1950s and the 1960s and the 1970s, we would, if we were behind a truck in a car, we'd say, oh man, I can't believe I'm behind a truck. That thing is smoky, smelly. Just look at that soot. We've got to pass that guy. And I'm not kidding. That's what happened in the 60s. No one wanted to be behind a diesel school bus, a diesel truck of any kind because of the soot and the smoke. And literally, it was black soot. Well, with the new common diesel engines, they have reduced the soot so that you can't see it. So those large, heavy particles that were airborne, that you could see, are now so small that you can't see them. You cannot see them. But the pollution is still there. When we come back, I'd like to continue this and get Dane Wigington's thoughts on what I'm about to say, the rest of the story. We're talking about geoengineering, above us and on the ground. I'm Vincent Finelli. We'll be right back. Dane Wigington's with us, and we're talking about geoengineering. Geoengineeringwatch.org is the website. So, Dane, the information that I've been provided, and I cannot verify this, so class, please take this in context, but I've been told that the Rolls-Royce, GE, Boeing, and Lockheed engines are capable now of burning this fuel that is combined with these agents, the aluminum, barium, and so forth. And that if you think about the soot of the diesel engines of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, maybe even up into the 80s, that visible smoke bothered us. Well, because we could see it and smell it. But the new diesel engines in trucks, light trucks, and Volkswagen, Audi, and so forth, the small cars, those diesel engines, you hardly can smell diesel fuel at all, really. And there's no visible soot. So the engines have been modified such that the pollutants are very, very small in size. Now, we may think that that's good, but here's what happened. With the old diesel fuels, the particles were large and they would fall down to the ground very quickly, within hours. The new particles are so small that they can stay airborne for days, weeks, and months. Now, let's think about this. You are following a vehicle in front of you, and there's a vehicle in front of that vehicle and so forth. You are inhaling these chemical compounds. The plane that is flying is in the trail of the plane in front, and in the trail of the plane in front of that. These pilots and the passengers are being poisoned from the exhaust that's in front of them. Now, here's where it gets very, very interesting. I've been told that there are the airplanes, commercial airliners, have been retrofitted with jets, and spray nozzle jets, pressurized jets. And there's a separate tank for the chemical compounds on commercial airliners. And the people who fuel the planes and add water for drinking also fill up this other compartment, which has which is the reservoir for these chemicals. And they're told it's just another water tank, so put this other kind of water in this tank. Now, we're thinking that the pilot might be the guy hitting the button, turning on the switch to spray these chemicals. No. I've been told that it's done remotely by satellite communication and control. So the plane it has a known location through GPS. And the spraying is done remotely from someone else in another location, not on the plane. Dane, have you received any information like that? Does this make sense to you? Can you comment on this, please?
Yes, this fits everything we've been told, Vincent. First, I had a meeting last Saturday with a government employee who is connected to an Air Force colonel. I know this person, believe him to be completely credible. I was told something that we already believe, that all Air Force pilots know this is going on, but they simply don't discuss it or talk about it. In regard to the commercial airline pilots, because the commercial planes appear to be used also, Project Cloverleaf, anyone can look this up, and there's a number of commercial pilots speaking out now, a number of them that we're communicating with, but their testimony backs up the sort of outline you just went over. Aerotoxic syndrome is increasing radically. Now, this is, again, associated with, even with frequent flyers. I'm looking at one headline right now, aerotoxic syndrome killing frequent flyers. The more time you spend in the air, the more exposed you are. Now, many people would question this whole scenario, that would the government intentionally try to pollute the air to try to slow some of the effects of climate change very toxically and destructively, but would they do this? When we have military leaders stating on the record, U.S. military leaders, that climate change is the greatest U.S. national security threat of all. Anybody who doesn't believe this, look it up, Google it. When we have headlines like this, reflective aviation fuel additive research to reduce global warming. This is the headline. So this backs up exactly what you're saying. We have more data, Vincent. I'll elaborate a little further after break.
Dane Wigington, senior USAPrepares.com instructor. We're delighted to have you with us, exposing the truth. It is the single greatest threat that we have to face, and we're doing it to ourselves. We'll be right back. Class, I'd like to say a special thank you to our friend Ron Gibson. I've never met Ron Gibson, but he is on the East Coast, and he takes this broadcast, as well as Alex Jones and a few others, just a few others, and he puts them on YouTube every day, tirelessly. So if you want to listen to this broadcast, share it with friends and family, it's also available on YouTube, USA Prepares. I think just do a search on that. And meet up on Monday, Ziggy's Sunshine and Glenstone, Ziggy's Restaurant. And on Monday, Lynette Marie is going to be with us, and we're going to be talking about clean air, clean water, clean food, and clean government. American nationals. What does that mean? That's part 2 in a series of how you can give up your citizenship and become a American national, and travel freely. throughout the country. And then we're going to talk about building trades update, what it's about, what's happening in the Ozark Mountains. Is construction actually happening? Who's doing it? Why? And what it looks like. So that's Monday. And if you'd like to see what I look like, and Dr. Norman Shealy, there's a past life regression. 1 hour, actually it's 55 minutes, of Dr. Norman Shealy's television show. And there's a link on the website, usaprepares.com. You can click on that, page 1, and it will take you right to the video. And you can see me and Dr. Shealy and me in a past life regression. It's real, it's unedited, it's all there. It's not cut. So if you want to see what I look like, there it is, and Dr. Norman Shealy. And there's a post, Blue Sky, Gone, and that is from Dane Wigington. So if you'd like to go to page 1 of USA Prepares and connect with Dane Wigington, you can, just by clicking on that post, and it will take you to his website. There's a link there, and it's also a link at the bottom of the page where all the instructors are for Dane Wigington. So, and Frank, we're going to be with you in just a minute, and Tim in West Virginia, we're going to be with you in just a minute. Dane, you've got some data you want to share with us.
Yeah, if I could run through this real quickly, I think it'll put it in context, because many people, Vincent, believe that certainly the government is doing everything it can to reduce aerosol pollution. That's what people believe. Not true. An article, this is a headline from Scientific American. I quote directly: stratospheric pollution helps slow global warming. This is the stated science when you put enough light scattering particulates in the atmosphere. Huge side effects, but that's still the scientific consensus now. Now, you mentioned earlier on the MTBE fuel additive, could that actually be adding to aerosol pollution, adding to respiratory issues? I quote from Professor Peter M. Joseph, Ph.D., Pennsylvania School of Medicine, that in regard to MTBE, many people find that it is causing them various kinds of illness. The symptoms can either respiratory, neurological, cardiac, allergic, asthma. So bottom line is, this is adding to the aerosol pollution overall, not reducing it. Why would they put a fuel additive in that adds to the pollution? Next, we have the U.S. military leaders, again, stating on the record that they consider climate change to be the greatest national security threat of all. Do we think they're going to ask our permission to put this stuff into the atmosphere? Now I quote from the Professional Pilots Network site. I quote directly: reflective aviation fuel additive research to reduce global warming. Yet another sign of the intended goal of intentionally putting very, very toxic nanoparticulates into the atmosphere in order to deflect light, diffuse some of the sun's incoming thermal energy. Now, one of the major consequences, again, I mentioned the atmosphere, how thin it is, and we have ozone depletion. Now I quote from the National Science Foundation: injecting sulfate particles into the stratosphere could have drastic impact on Earth's ozone layer, destroying as much as 3/4 of it. Now, again, it's a 2 + 2 = 4 equation. We know the stuff's in the air. We know that the military considers it the greatest threat. We know these programs have been going on for 60+ years. This is a very, very verifiable situation, Vincent. It's very lethal. Again, no ozone layer, no life on Earth. We're seeing massive ozone depletion right now, to the degree that we're seeing UVB levels at 1,200% above what we're being told. The data is completely falsified for what we're told is the actual UV levels. We're facing an extinction level event on planet Earth that's unraveling very rapidly. And climate engineering, again, appears to be the single greatest causal factor for the die-off on Earth today, which is 10,000 times natural variability. That's not a rounded figure. So we face a crisis of the first order, and this we're all breathing what they're spraying, and the different methods of delivery that you've outlined today are very likely all a part of this. People need to consider the gravity of what's unfolding around us.
Class, I'd like you to share this broadcast with friends and family. I think it's that important. Dane, I'm going to make a statement that I'd like you to comment on, and then we're going to get right to Frank and Tim, who are holding patiently. This is to all of the wives of pilots, all of the husbands of pilots. Your spouse is in harm's way. He or she is breathing these compounds that are sprayed directly in front of him or her. Now, ladies, would you sign up to bear a child with a birth defect or birth defects? Would you like one? Would you like your child to be born deformed in some way? Would you like that? If you think that what we're talking about is real, and if you think there's a possibility that these chemicals in the air that your spouse is breathing and they would affect your children, would you do something about it? Would you? Would you? That's the question I have to ask you. And if the answer is that you're concerned, I think you need to talk to your spouse about that if your spouse is in harm's way. And that will affect the future of your family. Dane, did what I just say seem over the top? Did it seem not credible? Did it seem so far out that it's not realistic? Or did it seem that it's plausible, possible, and could be true?
It not only could be true, Vincent, it's completely true. In fact, what your statements are still what I feel conservative from the true gravity of what we face. And if we can't breathe without sucking this stuff in for children, and their systems are much more susceptible than an adult, then we have a crisis of the first order. And one more sentence I want to read from this study from PhD from Pennsylvania School of Medicine, that the neurological symptoms can include, and this is from the inhalation of these atmospheric nanoparticulates, can include insomnia, anxiety, dizziness, nausea, headache, attention deficit disorder, heart palpitations, and a list of neurological diseases too long to list here. So, again, the lethality of these nanoparticulates cannot be overstated. They are much more lethal than the PM 2.5 micron particles, which is at best what air quality tests for, because people wonder, if this was going on, why wouldn't air quality show it? Because they are literally testing what amounts to a boulder compared to a grain of sand in scale of size. These nanoparticulates are so small, they don't show up anywhere in any of the air testing. They go completely under the radar, and they are much more lethal to us than the larger particles. So, again, we see it in the autism increase, which has increased 10,000% since 1975. That should be alarming as hell to people. So, no, you're not over-exaggerating. We see Alzheimer's, dementia, off the charts, respiratory mortality increasing radically in recent years. You are absolutely not being alarmist, Vincent. It's even worse than what you're stating.
Okay, and that's exactly where I was going, class. How many of you would sign up to volunteer to bear an autistic child rather than one without autism? That's exactly the point. I don't believe anybody would sign up for it just for fun. Frank from New Hampshire, you've been waiting so patiently. Thank you so much. You're on with Dane Wigington, me, Vin Finelli at usaprepares.com.
Well, thank you very much for having Dane on, and I really appreciate you sticking on this because I agree with Dane. I agree with you. It is of the utmost importance. Hey, listen, last night I was awoken at 2 a.m. by my dog essentially salivating out of control. He could not stop. This has happened a few other times, typically on very heavy spray days. So I took him outside, thought he just needed to go to the bathroom. I brought my trusty spotlight with me because now it's just become habit that when I know I'm being attacked from above, I'll bring my spotlight out. And at 2 a.m., I shined it skyward, and it was snowing here in central New Hampshire, 50 degrees out. One problem with the snow was, though, it was moistureless. It had absolutely no water. It wasn't, when it hit a metal surface like a car, it didn't leave any trace whatsoever, but this extremely fine talcum powder type dust that I discovered was covering all my vehicles this morning. Second point, these planes, I have been observing them for years here. The ones that are flying here, the ones that are spraying me, are not commercial. These are definitely planes. It's a fleet of about 15 planes. They're tasked specifically with going up and down the East Coast. They go to Canada, too. They fly right across the border, and then they come back. They typically go north at the end of the day when they're done So I suspect their base is somewhere either in northern New Hampshire or in Canada somewhere, and then they come back the next day. So it's a north-south traffic pattern.
If I can elaborate
I come out last night at 2 a.m. I bring out my video camera once I find that it's essentially snowing on me. I start to try and film this. It's very difficult to capture it on film, but I did my best. But the best way I can describe it is like somebody was about 100 feet over me with a big bucket of talcum powder. It was almost like chemical fog. It was that thick. I almost couldn't believe it. So
if I can elaborate on that, your points are absolutely valid. And what we're seeing on the radar, I mean, they're ice nucleating just about all moisture in the attempt to try to cool it off. This is one of the reasons why we see a lot of the larger hail. I just posted an article on this yesterday. Even though there's a canopy, a toxic canopy above a lot of the convective storms from the constant spraying, so they don't rise as high as they normally would, we're still getting huge hail, unprecedentedly large hail, and with unprecedented frequency. These ice nucleating materials cause that ice to form sooner and in much greater quantity than would otherwise happen. So we're getting huge hail. The kind of raining down that you're describing fits what we see on the radar, where they're nucleating clouds to try to cool the air mass off underneath. There's no moisture in it.
Hold that thought. We're going into a commercial. Class, during the break, Dane and I had a discussion with Frank, who just called in from New Hampshire. And he's going to be sending us information, pictures, and video clips of what is happening, what he has seen, what he has witnessed firsthand. And we'll post them on the website. Now, if you have images, pictures, and posts that you want to share with us here at usaprepares.com, and you want us to put them on the website, send them to Vincent, Vincent, at usaprepares.com, usaprepares.com. And there's a tab, contact tab on the website, and you can use that also. But just send it to Vincent at usaprepares.com. I'd like to share with you that we have very few senior instructors at usaprepares.com. Dr. Norman Shuley, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, and Dane Wigington. So I just want to let you know that that's how seriously I take that. That Dane's information, I believe, is absolutely right on the money. Dane, you wanted to comment about what we talked about during the break, and then Tim will be on.
Just a few seconds to back up what Frank said. Again, we're seeing any major areas of moisture and convection. They appear to be chemically nucleating the clouds. This cools down the air mass below the clouds. We would expect to see, in certain circumstances, what Frank just described, this sort of dry snow coming down because a chemically nucleated material sublimates, which means it goes from a solid to a gas, just like dry ice does, another chemically nucleated element. So we would expect to see exactly what Frank described, and what he cites is certainly occurring in other places around the globe as well, as they desperately try to cool things off and confuse people as to the true state of what's unraveling in our climate.
Okay. Tim from West Virginia, you're on with Dane and me. Tim, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great. How you been, Vin?
Well, I've been really good. I haven't heard you since I was removed from that local station in Springfield, Missouri. So what's happening with chemtrails in your area?
Well, I hope you'll give me the floor for a few minutes. I've been patient, and I'd like to rant for a few minutes.
Okay, we've only got a few minutes, so make it count.
Okay, here it goes. I'm going to talk fast, and a West Virginian never does that. But here's something I do. I think that many people try to debunk chemtrails by saying that they're just condensation trails. It's very easy to debunk these bunkers, Vin and Dane. Here's how I do it. I ask them if they occasionally see pristine blue skies like I'm seeing here in West Virginia today, which is only about 3 days a month, by the way, if I'm lucky. The type I saw as a young kid, but not as deep blue as Caribbean seas are, because there's always a haze no matter what. But these people always answer yes to me, Vin. And at that point, I asked him, I say, let's explore this logically and analytically. So your answer to the white lines we see all over the skies more often than not are condensation trails from commercial traffic. They always respond to me in the affirmative. And at that point, I say, then you're saying that on the clear blue days when the sky is pristine, there is no commercial air traffic over your head. You know, the only time there was never any air traffic in America was a few days post 9/11. Then, Dane, they never respond to me. They just look at me like a deer in the headlights.
You know, that's certainly an approach that can be taken, and another approach that can be taken is this fact. We have video film footage of these aircraft, tankers, spraying at altitude up close with the nozzles visible and the spray being turned on and off. So we have film footage of the crime happening. End of argument.
Absolutely. I see that, and let me squeeze this in. Dane, you mentioned early in the show that there's pushback from the mainstream media, but I would like to point out that it's not just the mainstream media. There's a disinformation agent on a competing network. His name is Michael Rivero, and if you talk about chemtrails to him, he will hang up on anyone that broaches the subject.
I know who he is. He'll be exposed soon enough. I know exactly who he is, and if people can use our site, geoengineeringwatch.org, for a tool, that's why it's there.
Dane, thank you so much for being with us. Tim, thanks so much for being with us, class. Geoengineeringwatch.org. Please visit it often and share it with friends. Above all, honesty and integrity.